climate change affects sea levels and the U.S. coasts are rising faster than ever, putting New York at risk. This is nothing new. The past mayors have thought of putting dikes around the island of Manhattan because of flooding issues, and it seems that this has to be done sooner than later. Sea levels around the coast of the U.S. are accelerating each year, but the rate at which they're doing so are now accelerating faster than predicted in the past. They're putting coastal cities such as New York and of course New Jersey, which is low-lying, at very high risk. An annual review of U.S. coastlines found that sea level rises are speeding up year on year. The annual report from William and Mary's Virginia Institute of Marine Sciences, VIMS for short, monitors 32 tidal stations around the U.S. They found that sea levels rose 27 of them in the past year alone, 2019. In 25 of the tidal stations, sea levels had risen more than at any other rate since experts started recording in 1992. The Gulf Coast in Louisiana, Galveston, and Rockport in Texas were at the very top of that list. Rockport is the fastest rising of them all, and experts believe that by the year 2050, sea levels will be almost 3 foot higher than they were in 1992. Only 5 of the stations reported a drop in sea levels, 4 of which were in Alaska, where coastal mountains are forming, pushing land higher, of course, whereas on the East Coast, land is slowly sinking. VIMS marine scientist Molly Mitchell said, although sea level has been rising very slowly along the West Coast, models have been predicting that it will start to rise faster. The report cards for the past 3 years support this idea. She said NASA data revealed it predicted sea levels would rise by just 0.62 meters, that's just about over 1.5 feet, by the end of the century. Well, that's blown out of the water. It's a lot more than that. Now, the latest report card indicates that experts may need to review this assessment. Ms. Mitchell added, seeing acceleration at so many of our stations suggests that when we look at the multiple sea level scenarios that NOAA puts out based on global models, we may be moving towards the higher projections. We have increased evidence from tide gauge records that these higher sea level curves need to be seriously considered in resilient planning efforts. If you cross the threshold in terms of something like sea level rise, what came before, say a tide gauge record that began in 1900, is biased in terms of seeing where we're going. When we think ice sheets are melting faster today, and if that's true, then the previous 90 years of data won't accurately predict the future. Now, the project's founder, Emeritus Professor John Boone, said the key message from the 2019 report card is a clear trend towards acceleration in rates of sea level rise at 25 of our 32 tide gauge stations. Acceleration can be a game changer in terms of impacts and planning, he said, so we really need to pay heed to these patterns, of course. Now, we know globally sea levels are rising at about 8 millimeters a year due to the melting ice, and while that does not seem like much, the implications for future generations, of course, will be huge. It means that cities near rivers and coasts will be flooding more easily. And especially in the U.S., they claim that by the year 2050, for example, a lot of cities in New Jersey will be underwater. Now, between 1993 and 2014, sea levels rose by 2.3 inches, or roughly 3 millimeters per year. And if it continues at the current rate or gets faster, it could mean coastal cities such as New York could be submerged by the end of the century. That's bad news, obviously. Now, global warming is contributing to the loss of ice cover in the Antarctic and Arctic. The Antarctic, we know, has weather record heat now these past 2 weeks because of the fact that it's warmer there than it is in Spain or Los Angeles. It's like 20 degrees Celsius. It's like 75 Fahrenheit. They must be walking around with their short sleeve shirts in Antarctica. Can you imagine? So that's not good. Obviously, if it's that hot, it's going to be a fast melt of the glaciers. So the loss of ice cover, and researchers believe Greenland, of course, as well, could be one of those worst affected. And also the third pole. We have the North Pole, the South Pole, and the third pole, which is over the Himalayas. Those are melting too. Those glaciers are melting at a record rate as well. So Greenland has up to 3 kilometers thick ice in certain places, covering an area 7 times as big as the UK. And if all this ice were to melt, it would cause sea levels to rise by a staggering 21 feet, 7 meters, which could have major implications not only for the UK, but worldwide, obviously. This is on Express UK by Sean Martin. If you'd like to join me on my Patreon account, you will hear content not covered by mainstream media. These riveting stories will be based on my research, and I will state my opinions and give my personal insight on diverse and controversial subjects and world events not covered by mainstream media, and not supported by YouTube guidelines. So whatever I have on my Patreon, most of those will not be on my YouTube channel. Please consider becoming a member today. More of the most significant and important videos will be on my Patreon channel. Your support helps me to continue my research and keeps this YouTube channel alive. And we depend on your support, your generous charity, because we help economically challenged families here in Athens, Greece, in Kapota, and we also help the young generation with university tuition and the community around our church. Thank you.